Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is the first day of a big week of earnings. So, welcome to the 24th, and this is Monday. So let's get started with the end of day market recap. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer here. So, overall, again, some separations in sectors. Today was more of a value type day. I think value was up about, I mean, not huge, right? We're not seeing huge outside moves, but value was up, what, 30 basis points today. So almost 1/3% versus growth, which was just slightly down for the day. Energy led for the day. We haven't seen that in a while. That group was probably due for some movement. And on the underperforming side today, you had biotech, you had software, which, it's kind of interesting because I saw a lot of setups kind of coming into today. I think that was one of the more popular groups as people were going over their charts this weekend, was that, some solar names really looked good, but, a setup is just that. And, you don't know if you're going to get some type of rotation once the market open. So it's always important to do your homework, but it's always also important to be pretty objective. And if something does change, then you can kind of pick up what some of the day's movers are. SPY was, kind of oscillated back and forth today between positive and negative. SPY did finish up to 0.1%, which I think is basically right where we started, give or take 0.1 percentage point. The Qs, they were down, but not much, 20 basis points. Again, they came back from the lows. And the small caps, which were also all over the place, they were up earlier in the day. They went down, and then they finished basically flat for the day. So this is the world that we're in right now. Let's take a look at some of these index charts, and I'll point out a couple things that I noticed. But number one is that, first of all, I think everybody knows at this point that the range is just very, very, the price action, the range is just very tight. We're not really doing too much here. We are finding we're been gravitating a little bit lower to this 20-day moving average, or this is the 20-day exponential moving average that I have on my chart. And then this is the 5-period moving average. I tend to look more at the moving averages when we're trading, either above value or below value. And, so it's not going to take much for us to either break the 20 or move back above the 5. I think you just have to kind of wait for one of those days for a little bit of confirmation if that's what you're looking for. The 1-hour chart also, we always look at this in the beginning of the week because the value area for the week can really give us some hints about that direction. Note that in the overnight market, we took out this virgin point of control. So we revisited last week's lows. We actually took them out for about, each one of these bars is an hour, or candles is an hour. So we did take out those lows, but we bounced back once again, and just basically back into the middle of this range. Your top of value is 41.74. Again, this value area is based on all of last week's volume and price activity. Of course, on the 5-minute, we had a little bit of a difficult, once we did bounce, right? This was at 2 o'clock. We hit the top of value. Usually that's a surefire, scenario where if we hit this and we can't take it out, it just shows you that we don't have that much strength. We had a nice bounce for the day, but then we were able to kind of recoup in that last hour, and basically here we are, back to the open. So, depending on how you're trading, if you're doing a lot of day trading, then this may be a market for you, even though there's not such wide swings, but you can trade both sides of the market, as long as you can kind of flip to both sides easily. If you're buying the open, this is not a great market for you, right? And if you're looking to do something in the first 20 minutes on the long side, a lot of times you're getting trapped, because sometimes even the day, we got through about an hour of the trading day. So sometimes it's the first 15 minutes that'll get you. Today we got through basically an hour, and then the sell program, kind of hit the tape, and we moved down until about 12 o'clock when the volume is the lowest of the day, and then managed to recover quite a bit. NASDAQ, let's look at NASDAQ futures, or well, we'll do Qs, but I think there's some observations that you can kind of see from this too. Again, in between the 20-day and the 5-day moving average, no breakdown, but certainly like you can see, I've got this little, these two trend lines drawn in here, which I'm going to give them, I'm going to make them dotted and stand out a little bit better on my chart. But we've got a little bit of a short-term pattern taking place. And again, we'll go to the 1-hour chart so that you could see that. But since last week, any type of movement to the upside has been met with selling pressure, right? So let me remove this. I don't need this anymore. Remove drawing. But starting, and again, this is just really short-term stuff. One day can change this pattern, but this was in the beginning of last week, right? That was the high right around 321.36. The next time, so we made a low here for the week, just barely, and then lackluster bounce, so a higher low here. Again, made a new low for the week, right? So another new low, and then another higher, then another lower high, right? So we've been in this pattern now for just about a week where we do bounce, but every time it's being met, and the pattern is lower highs, right? It's also lower lows. So that's why you have this. That's why I decided to draw this channel in here, and we'll watch for a break of this. But for now, the bounces are getting smaller and smaller, and being hit with really decent selling pressure. So for now, the market just doesn't want to turn the corner and go higher. In fact, it's having trouble, getting out of this particular pattern. So I think that'll really be something to watch for tomorrow. 316.22, right, is also a level to watch. Now, all of this, again, is really super. Again, I can't stress enough, super short term, right? We did have, and the Qs are up the most out of any US index year to date. So it's going through a decent amount of digestion, especially when you've had a decent advance and you haven't had many names report earnings. So I think really that could be the driver. I think that's what I don't think I'm alone in that view. Cadence, for example, is another one that, is a name, for example, that advanced pretty decently, right? They had earnings here after the close, and it's kind of interesting to read the report, right? I mean, this could be a lot of what we get, and because the report was pretty good, but they brought in their forecast a little bit, right? Your forecast 496 to 504, so that's okay, but the revenue was slightly less, right? And it sees adjusted EPS 115 to 119. The estimate was 125. Again, why am I bringing this name up? Because I think it's one of those under the radar names that has done very well, but you don't hear a lot of people talking about it. But they've quietly been a leader of the market, right? You keep hearing all this nonsense that it's only 3 or 4 companies participating, right? Now, of course, this name isn't a big weight in the indices, so it's not going to push the indices. It's not going to be responsible for the gains, but it's up 32%. So it is selling off here a little bit. 202 is where this thing is pre-market. So we'll keep an eye on this. But again, it's important to kind of keep in mind the run that this thing has, and if you look at some of the other names that are going to report earnings this week, right? Now, Microsoft isn't up that much, but it's also been on a decent run. So they're going to have to, I think these names, if I were to make a prediction, right, they're going to need to have a little bit better than the expectations, right? We know that the expectations are, it's not a lot of people don't talk about this, so that's why I'm going to, but the guidance numbers, right, and the estimates have been brought in. So this is an easier bar for these companies to jump over, right? The expectations for earnings are pretty low, but they still have to go ahead and beat those numbers. So I don't know if Cadence, had a high number going into earnings, but when you look at, tomorrow we're going to get Microsoft and Google after the close, and then Thursday we're going to get Amazon, right? These numbers are going to have to do something. They're given that they've advanced, right? What's Microsoft up this year? right? Because again, the point here is that they're not cheap as they were in the beginning of this, or as cheap as they were in the beginning of this year. So Microsoft has a PE of 30. It is up 17.5% year to date. So yeah, I mean, I think that this is that, it's a reminder too that they give their guidance on the earnings call, right? So they're going to have to come out with something a little bit better than I think than what the street is looking for them to kind of continue in their trajectory. All right, that's a couple thoughts on that. I was going to go over, so I went over the Qs. IWM, again, not much to really look at here other than the fact that 178.60 is a level that's going to have to be overcome. We're getting some regional bank earnings that came in after the close. Just keep in mind, I don't think it's so much about their numbers. It's really, for a lot of these banks, I don't think it's going to be so much about their recent earnings, but it's going to be whether they're going to make it as a going concern, right? I think there was a big drop off in their deposits, which brought the stock down. So I don't think like these regional banks are like really good opportunities to go long here, because this is going to take a while for itself to sort out. Just because a name has a little bit better than expected earnings, I don't expect the name's going to go up on that, because there's a lot more to it at this point. All right. I figured I would go through a couple names. I don't go over the Dow in every one of these videos, but I'm also just seeing a little bit of relative strength. Notice how the Dow, right, which is only 30 stocks, price weighted, which is not a great weighting scheme in my opinion, but they actually recouped the 5-day moving average today, just barely. I mean, you're talking about a hair, right? So a little bit of strength going into things like, Exxon, of course, had a nice day. This is something that we saw call activity in last week. I got shaken out on this candle. Again, I don't it doesn't bother me to admit that, but I went long some Exxon and I got shaken out. That's a lot of times what's going to happen in some trades is sometimes, if you set your stop too tight. I think I set my stop at the bottom of the range, which was 114. It went below it. I took it off and I didn't go back into it. And you got a new high today in Exxon today. So very nice. A couple other names like that are more like Dow type names. Nike really had a nice move. That turned higher, right? That for a while was kind of just digesting, where we've seen a lot of other sneaker or shoe companies do very well. This Crocs has just been unreal since this thing has been breaking out. Note, this name is going to have earnings this week. So, I think it's a great opportunity to take profits into an unknown event, but that's just me. And then of course, ONON has been a champ, up again today, up another percent. So I think Nike, at this point should be moving with this group and back to the maybe not to the highs, but turning back up. Home Depot also is trying to kind of hang in there. This was a name that I traded last week. I didn't stay in it for long, but ultimately I think this name could go up to 311. Builder's one name I'm watching, right? This name has been so strong. I was hoping that this name actually comes into the 20-day moving average, but sometimes the stronger names, they don't give you a chance all the way down into the 20-day moving average. Costco, right, which sold off a little bit on their monthly sales numbers, but you're starting to see this thing break a bit higher, right? It had this real nice price reaction on Thursday, inside day, Friday, and then had a nice move today, moving back above the value area, above this version point of control. And you can see I've got a trend line drawn in here too. There will be a version point of control that will come into the screen, but it's just on the 5-minute. But I like the break of this trend line. Sometimes, again, you could see these things a little bit clearer on the 5-minute. Medical devices. Medtronic, which is a name that I covered last week in the trading room, right? Look at this thing get going. So really nice strength again out of the medical devices, and a name has really been beaten up. They had some positive news on one of their medical equipment, I think like a pump or something like that. And this name has been doing very well, up another 4.6%. Another name in this group too, which reports this week, Edward Life Sciences, that's up to 88.80, and also breaking back above its 200-day moving average. So again, some outside of what kind of looked strong coming into this week, which I think was a lot of software names, we're seeing some participation in some of these other, areas of the market, such as a little bit of the industrials, a little bit of the home improvement type stocks, and Dow Industrial stock, right? One more stock too that I was looking at too is Berkshire, right? Look at Berkshire, small digestion in here and moving higher. So right now, that's what the market likes. Again, big, we talked about on Friday's video, the public video, that the IBD 50 had a good week, up 2%. But again, don't overstay your welcome. Be objective and notice where the new kind of trends are, where the momentum is. And for today, these areas did pretty well. All right, guys, have a great night. If you're not a member of Tribeca Trade Group, check out tribecatradegroup.com, and hope to see you in the trading room tomorrow morning when we start our pre-market session, which is right around 10 after 9 o'clock, and we do that till 9:30. Have a great night, everybody.